Hi, Courtney here today to talk to you about when is enough enough. And so I was inspired by another video I saw, and I would love to get him credit, but I cannot remember the name of the video. He had been in my queue for years, and the title of it was, I'll try to link it below. Anyways, he retired at 36. He's been sailing most of his life since retiring. He is about 6 years older than me at 56, and he had mentioned in that video, when is enough enough? And there is another topic I've been hearing a lot about in the FI world about getting to middle class comfort and then stopping. And I would say that has been one of the biggest secrets and takeaways for me in my journey to financial independence. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what that looks like in real life and what that means and where we are today on our journey to financial independence. So if you follow me, you may be aware, and there was an article written about my husband and myself on a local podcast, if you follow the FI community, that you may have seen, with a lady named Jackie. And it was, I want to say it was 6 to 600,000 was the name of the podcast. But people who had made it to 600,000 or to a very large number coming from a very low place of income. So my husband and I met back in 2001, and we had both been recently divorced. We were both starting over financially. He was actually in bankruptcy, and I inherited some debt through the marriage. I had to take on, I had to take over my car, I had to take over the house, and I had also a ton of lawyer bills through the divorce. And so at the time I was making about $15,000 a year. It would take me a year to get any kind of help from my ex-husband, so it was a real struggle. So I just want to come to you today to say my husband and I did not start out wealthy. He was 53 when we met, and I was 40, and we were not wealthy. I don't know that we're wealthy today, depends on your standards, but we're definitely very comfortable and have come a long way since then. So my story is in my back videos, but I want to talk about when is enough enough. So the secret to that is that early on we were making, between the two of us, the first year, I want to say he made $18,000 and I made $15,000, and he had actually just opened a business and was trying to get that going, doing some side construction work. He'd gone back to work part-time at the court. He was a policeman that had retired and went back to work in the court system. I was working at a nonprofit and doing about 20 hours a week there and teaching about 3 yoga classes and running a yoga school. And my net was like $15,000. I didn't start that nonprofit job until after I got divorced, so that increased my income up to about $27,000. So the first couple years we were together, collectively we were making anywhere from about $30,000 to $60,000 at the high end for a long, long time. We moved in together a few years before we got married in 2018. And when we moved in together, by that time, I had gotten all of my debt paid off except for one car. I did buy a new car. I put $5,000 down on it. I bought a far less car than I could have afforded by certain standards. And long story short, we were in a much better position. Together at that time, we were probably making about $60,000, but we combined households and we were living on about $30,000 to $50,000 a year, depending on certain circumstances. We were aggressively saving as well. So as our income grew, my husband, his side hustle, which was roofing, he had been doing that for years and years since he was a young man on the side. He'd been doing roofs. His brothers do roofs, the whole family. His dad was a church builder. And with my business skills and his hard work and his good salesmanship and good ethics, we have built that business to over 6 figures over the last 9 years. And so the net is over 6 figures. So it's high 6 figures on the gross and low 6 figures on the net. And so what has happened there is we have not really increased our living. So I want to address each issue, and I'll just put it in context of how we live. I had to write this on the back of a receipt because I'm frugal and I use up all pieces of paper. On our cars, my husband drives a 2009 Honda CRV, and we have put a trailer hitch on it so he can use it for work. We do need to get a farm truck and a truck for pulling, but we are saving in a separate account for that. So my husband, even though we could go out and buy a brand new truck at a dealership and have a $600 payment a month, we do not do that. He drives an old beat up CRV. When we pull up to do a roof, people probably think we are broke. We are not. It is paid for. We only have to pay liability insurance, which is like $30 a month on it, and it gets about 22 miles to the gallon. He has a fold-up ladder he puts in the back. He can do just about everything he needs to do with that CRV. We probably will get a $4,000 farm truck that he can use occasionally to haul stuff on our house. Even though we live on a 40-acre farm and we have a brand new house and a cabin, my husband saved up during that first few years we were together. We saved up everything we made over what we lived on. He saved up, I want to say it was $42,000. We put a big down payment on the house. And as we built the house ourselves, we had people help us. We hired some contractors, but my husband did a lot of it with his friends. We paid cash for things. So like when it came time to go to buy appliances, I had saved up a couple of $1,000s and I went and paid cash for the appliances. We did this all along the way. We had a loan, but as often as we could, we paid cash. So that when we got the loan, the house payment here was no more than the house payment I had when I lived in town. Now, there is a little bit of difference in taxes and insurance are more, and I want to say this house payment may be $50, $150 more, but not much difference at all. Okay, so on the house where we were aggressively saving to build this house, we also have been aggressively paying down this house. We purchased, we only took out a loan for $218,000, which doesn't, depending on where you are, sounds like a lot or not a lot, for this 1,800 square foot house and 40-acre farm with a barn, a workshop, and we have another cabin, which we also paid cash for. I'll tell you about that in a minute. So we could have built we could have, by today's standards, qualified for a loan to go build a 4,000 square foot mansion with a pool and all the fancy stuff, because we make enough and have no debt. So our debt to income, except this mortgage, is so high that we could have gotten that, but we chose to live to that standard that this 1,800 square foot house is plenty of house for the two of us. So we see we have not increased our standard of living, but we are very comfortable. And then you get the house. Food. I don't so much watch my food budget anymore because food is one area where we are very, we have habits built in. Both my husband and I are kind of health freaks. We do not eat meat or dairy products. And so mostly we occasionally have a little bit, maybe it might sneak in, but for the most part, we are 99% plant-based. And, so we eat really healthy, and I do buy organic. I would say we spend somewhere between $600 and $700 on average a month on food for the two of us. But we have such good habits. For instance, we don't eat out a lot. We pack our food when we go places. We always pack our snacks. We always take a drink with us. We never, ever, ever, it would have to be the most rare exception do we buy a drink out. Occasionally when I go to the grocery store, I'll pick up a kombucha, but 99% of the time we always pack our drinks and extra water. So we have built-in habits. I don't go through and get lattes, and I'm not saying that you can't get rich and drink lattes. You can if that's what you value, but I just have such frugal habits that I don't have to be as careful in that area anymore, because I basically have a certain amount of money that goes into our checking account every month, and everything else goes to savings, and we've lived off that same amount for years. So I want to talk to you a little bit about those. So those are the three largest costs people have: their cars, their houses, and their food. If you can keep those under control, you can really save a lot of money. Also, being out of debt, not getting into debt in the first place, and if you are in debt, getting out very quickly. When you are paying interest, you are losing money. You want interest to be being paid to you, not the other way around. So if you go finance a car or a house or furniture or whatever, or credit card debt, you are paying not only what you paid for that item, but paying more for that item in interest every month. So that $10 shirt you put on a credit card may end up costing you $40 or $50, but if you pay it off over the long run, because you will pay so much interest. So when you get debt free, that money that you were paying on debt, once you get to enough, a comfortable style of living, not too much, not too little, but just right, just enough, then you will begin to build wealth. And so one thing that I've already talked about, habits, is once you get that first 100,000 saved, your income begins to very rapidly increase. Over about a 10 to 12 year period, the market will return about 10%. I don't have all of our money in the market. I have about half of our money in the market and half of our money in liquid, where in checking accounts and savings accounts. And some people may think that's crazy, but I have personal reasons for doing that, and because it's spread out over accounts where I keep money for things like the cabin. The cabin up the hill, when we sold my house in town, I had said that I would retire my school when I saved up $60,000. Don't ask me why. I don't remember why $60,000. Maybe it was a year's worth of income more that I wanted to have. So I did that. I knew for about 3 years that that was my goal. And I said, when I save $60,000, 1 year's worth of income for the two of us, which we don't actually need that much to live on, I will retire, because I know I can buy myself time if it doesn't work out. And I knew I would also be debt free. So I did. I saved $60,000. And I worked really hard during that 3 years. I just want to preface this by, I worked every other weekend and I worked 5 days a week. So I was working really, really hard, and that was not sustainable for a long term. So then when I sold my house in town, I profited around $30,000, and I had $25,000 to dedicate to build this place up here. And my husband, with our roofing company, we paid cash as we built that house. So we put the $25,000 that I had saved from the house. We also took a vacation, paid cash for it, to Yellowstone. And then as we went along, he paid cash for the rest of it. So we both ended up putting about $30,000 into it. It cost us about $60,000 to build. And right now we Airbnb it out for around an average of $1,000 a month in profit. So it's definitely been a good return. We built it really not to Airbnb, but for a family member to live out here, because it was a quality of life issue. But I would say, I was telling my son yesterday that you want to have a life, and I was telling a friend of mine, where you get to like, what is enough? Like right now, I'm saving to buy a RAV4 because I would like to have a car that I have some independence in. I like to have all-wheel drive in case I get stuck on a back road, because I live in the country. I like to go out exploring. I also like to go to flea markets, and if I want to buy a chair, I want to be able to put it in the car myself and bring it home. I don't want to always have to depend on someone with a truck to help me. But I'm driving a 2008 Acura TSX right now, which is a little bitty car. It's fine. It's paid for. It drives like a Cadillac. It's a great little car, but it uses premium gas, and it says on there, only use premium gas in this car. So that's very expensive. I would like to have a used RAV4, so I've got a car replacement fund for that. And so enough is enough is getting to that place where I would say it's middle class or upper middle class income. So for instance, you may be able to afford the $400,000 house by the bank standards, but you choose to live in the $200,000 house. You may be able to afford the brand new truck that's $60,000 because you can afford the payments, but you choose not to do that. You save, you have delayed gratification, and you save and you go pay cash for a nice used vehicle. So that is what we do, and that has allowed us. I have an account for car replacement fund, a money market, which is an emergency fund, and then I keep a minimum in our businesses, the Airbnb, my yoga business, because I'm self-employed, and I keep a minimum in our roofing business. Once we get over that minimum balance, that is comfort for us. It's kind of like an emergency fund. Like, let's say I keep $2,000 in the Airbnb one. That way, if anything happens, like there's a leak or something, we can pay for it out of pocket. Once we get past those minimums, I don't take that money and go buy a car or go on vacation. I take that money and I put it into paying off our mortgage, or I put it into the market, I put it into our IRAs, or I put it into emergency fund, or I put it into a car replacement fund. And that way, we always have money to do the things that we want to. Now, if we recently took a vacation and we just paid for it out of our personal money. I've actually backed off. For years, I was putting about $2,000 a month from my income and $1,600 from Jim's, because we've got a ton of stuff that comes out of his check before we ever see it, like health insurance. So we were living off somewhere around $3,600 a month. During the pandemic, I was out of work and I was waiting on getting unemployment, and we were actually living on about 2,950, because I wasn't getting any income and I wasn't getting unemployment yet. We had to wait. And so we got to where we were spending so little that I was actually able to back up our income by about $1,100 a month. Now, at the time, we were able to put our house in forbearance. We're with a very small hometown bank, and we don't have to pay that back until I've been paying it back, but it just got tacked onto the end of our loan, which at the time wasn't the best, but we were kind of like, what do we do? So we hunkered down and saved every penny. But long story short, I was able to back us up to where now I haven't had to start putting my paycheck back in there. We've learned to live off of Jim's paycheck and the roofing paycheck that pays us, which is about $3,000 a month. And we always have enough money to pay everything because we have really good frugal habits. Our entertainment is usually free. We go driving, we go swimming, we go hiking. We rarely spend money out. We cook at home. My husband rides horses. So there's just very little spending. And when it comes time to pay a big bill, like our homeowners insurance is due, I have enough in our personal account that I can just write the check, and it's not a problem. So you've got to get to a point where you stop having lifestyle inflation. You stop always having the next better, bigger thing, and you start to say, this is enough. I have absolutely everything I need and want. Yes, I would love to have a little bigger car with a little bit more features, but I'm perfectly satisfied with that because, I'm only paying liability if I get a bigger, better car. I don't want to have to pay full coverage insurance. So those are things you have to think about. And if you practice an abundance mindset, thank you. If you're religious or secular, however you want to do it, thank you for everything that I have been given. Thank you for my home. Thank you for my car. You can speak to the God of your understanding. I don't care who you speak to, Mother Earth, the energy, whatever you want to call it. If you have that abundance mindset, look at all I have. Look at all I have been given. So many people in the world have so far less than you. If you are watching this today, you probably have internet or a phone or a computer. And so when you practice that abundance mindset, it just flows to you. And I cannot explain it, but it works, and I know it works. So I wanted to talk about enough is enough and that relation to mindset and wealth, because it is one of the biggest factors in financial independence. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for staying on here for so long, and I appreciate you. Bye-bye.